What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 21st Java tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about arrays. Now, we're reaching towards the end of the beginner tutorials, and after this, I'm going to be doing some intermediate tutorials. But anyways, back to arrays. So what arrays are is a way for us to store multiple values in one data location, one address. So what we've been doing is creating variables like integers, string characters, and each one has its own data address, and it's picked up and retrieved and used, and then that's it. But each one only contains one value. But with arrays, you can store many values in one data location and then retrieve those. So what we have been doing, I'll just use integers, is we've been setting that to like a value, right? So int num0 equals 9. I'm going to copy this just for an example. We'll say num1. We'll set that to 5. This is how we would need to create multiple variables, right? You would set each one to a different variable. But in arrays, what you can actually do is set all these into one spot, because this gets a little repetitive. So we initialized, set a variable, set its value, initialized variable, set its value, did it again and again and again. But what if you had many values and you wouldn't want to be creating variables every time that you want to store a value? So what you can do instead is called an array. Now, how you actually initialize an array, how you write it in Java, it's you say the array type, the data type. So to store these numbers, we'll say int for integer, and then you put the square brackets. So that's what that's saying is int array. And for simplicity, I'll just name it int array. You can name it whatever you want. And then you set it equal to, in this case, we know what values are going to go in. We're just going to copy those ones. So we have 9, 5, 6, 6, and 1023. So what we did here was we actually created an array and stored these numbers, these integers. So we did the same thing that we did up here with 4 different variables, except we did it in an array. Now, how an array actually works is it has a thing called indexes inside of the array. That's how it's stored. And the indexes start at 0, and then, so the 0 index, 9 would be stored. The first index, 5 would be stored. The second index, 66, and the third index would be 1023. So that's how it stores. It doesn't store 1, 2, 3, 4. It actually stores it as in 0, 1, 2, 3. Now, you can also store different data types as arrays. So there's strings and characters, Boolean. So if we were to create a string array, it's the same thing. Now, one thing you'll see up here, we didn't, we actually inputted the values right here on our own, but, like when we initialize it, but what you can do is set the size of the array and then put the values in later. So we'll name this one a string array, and we will just call it grocery list equals new string array. So this is another way to initialize the array. And then what you do here is you put the size in. So right here, the 3 means that it's going to be 3, it's going to hold 3 values. So it would be at the 0 index, the 1, the first index, and the second index. So how you would put the values into this is you would write the array name, and then you're going to put the index at which you want to input your value within the square brackets, And then you're just going to write whatever it is. So this is a string array called grocery list. So this needs to be strings of whatever we're going to get. So obviously we need some cereal. That's definitely not how you spell cereal. Close enough. All right, so now we have our array that's our grocery list. And at our 0 index, which is our first one, it's going to store the string cereal. So let's fill the other ones. We need our first index, and if we're going to have cereal, we're going to need milk. And then again, our third index, or our second index, remember it stores 3 values, so our 0, 1, and 2, those are the index numbers. And then let's go ahead and get some chocolate. So we created an array here and then inputted the values in one at a time. And then another array, an example of an array is a character array. And the same thing, you do the data type, which is character in this circumstance. Then you do the square brackets, which this just means character array. And then you give it its name. So characters are letters, so we'll keep it like that. And then we're going to use our method right here. And that's use your curly braces and then put the characters in. And remember, for characters, you don't use the quotations, the double quotations. That's for strings. So for characters, you're actually going to use these single quotations. And then you separate it with commas. Like that. Because you'll notice each one you separate with a comma, and that's how it can tell where the value starts and where the value ends. So in order to display these, before, what we would have to do, like say if we wanted to display all of these variables that we did at the top, we would have to system.out.println all of them. And I actually have it right here, and I'm just going to copy it on here on the screen for you. So this is what we would have to do, right? So we'd have our little menu here so we can tell what it is, our integer variables. And then we'd have to output each individual variable. I'll run this so you can see it. So that's what that's going to do. And that's equal to these variables right here. That's what it just displayed. Now, what we can do to make that much simpler is we can print our array. Now, how we're going to do that is with a for loop. So I know for loop, remember what we want to do. Let me get it in the middle of the screen here. For the for loop, you're going to do it the same way. I like to use I, so int I equals 0, because remember we want to start at the 0 index, the first one. And then this is where, this is cool, this is what you can use for arrays. So as long as I is less than, and then we have int array, that's the name of it. As long as I is less than, int array dot length, and then we want to increment it. So what this is going to do, it's going to go through the entire array. Each index at a time is going to start through 0, and then it's going to go through 1, 2, and so on until it reaches it's one less than the length of the array. And what the length of the array actually is this number right here. So this would be 3. It holds 3 values, therefore the length is 3. Don't get that confused with the index numbers, because the index numbers start at 0. Because this would be 0, 1, 2, but the total values, it's 3 values. So the length is the actual amount of values it holds, whereas the index is how it's retrieved, how it's stored. And just like this for letters, this would be length of 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 4. But the indexes are 0, 1, 2, 3. And likewise for this would be length of 4, but the indexes are 0, 1, 2, and 3. So back to our for loop, so we want to display it. So how we actually display it is we're going to use our system.out.println, and you copy down the name of the array with the brackets, and then you put I inside of that. And now each time that it runs through this for loop, it's going to print out int array at 0. It's going to increment int array at 1, 2, and then it's going to keep on going until it reaches the end of the array. So I'll run this, and you can see it right there. So we have our variables at the top, which is what we had to print each time with all of these lines right here. And then this for loop right here did that, printed out our array, which held the same values, and it's right here. So it's a lot less work using arrays, and it's much easier, especially if you're storing many values. So likewise for the same thing, I have our string array, which is the grocery list. And then you'll see here again, so you want to start at 0. You want to start at whatever index you want to display. And since we want to display all the values, we're going to start at 0 as our first index. As long as I is less than grocery list.length, which means the array's length, whatever your array's name is, and this one is grocery list. And then we're going to display array at this element. And remember, we're going to start at 0. And we're going to run it, and then we're going to have the same thing. String array, and then what it has. Let me put this here so it looks nice. Run it again. And you'll see our string array with this is our little menu, and then what's in it, the strings that are in it. And then finally, we are going to have our character array, and it's the same thing. We're going to do a for loop, and then remember, so our array is called letters. That's the name we gave it. And the name dot length returns, this is just going to be exactly what the length was. And remember, the length is 4 right here. So this is going to say, as long as I is less than 4, we're going to display. So it's going to run through the first loop. It's going to display A. It's going to go again, B, C, D, and then at that point, it's no longer less, I is no longer less than 4, so it's going to break out of that. So let's run that, and there you go. We have our character array too. Alright, so that's the basic rundown of arrays. I hope that helped, and if you have any questions, leave it down in the comments or send me a message, and I will see you in the next video where we'll be going over more array things, a 2D array, and then also a few other things. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.